to dying daily.
No, I'm talking
I
about
was referring to experiencing death daily.
daily.
Yeah.
Right, but experiencing death daily the salvation would be you dying daily to that
well,
death.
when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't seem like that. In retrospect, you can say, okay, I see what God was doing all the time. But when you're going through it, it's like, man, this sucks.
But the temptations that comes at you and says, okay, now you need to go and clothe yourself, or you need to go and put something into action. You need to get something to work for you in order to take, because the reality, when pain comes our way, we don't want it. And the temptation right is there. It's just like, I've got to enlist something now to get rid of this pain.
Right.
When the reality is the spirit in you stirring up and saying that you fellowship, like we said, you fellowship with the Father around that truth. And out of that, His life manifests.
Yeah. And that's what the Spirit will do in all of us. The problem is, I don't even really want to say it like that, but I will. So few people actually want a fellowship with the Spirit because we don't want that light bread. We become focused on this. But what will happen is, one of the main reasons why we still show up on Sunday and preach from the pulpit, and the reason why I do all the Bible studies, is because it's releasing the Spirit. And it gives people fellowship with the Spirit. Something I noticed in my own life is, no, I never like the death when it comes knocking at my door. Okay? And death isn't just like my body perished. Does everybody understand what I mean when I say death? Okay? Something I see happening more and more in my life through fellowshipping with the Spirit of God, doing the dance with the Spirit, is sooner and quicker and more apt. The second that thing comes knocking on my door, I find my soul connecting with Abba. Right there. Boom. And I find it happening sooner and sooner. Not by an intellectual process where I say, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do now. But I've been so awestruck by the revelation as God as Abba, it's like instinctually, the first thing my heart does when it encounters that is it starts talking with God. A beautiful dynamic happens when you start talking with God. You don't even have to know this is happening, but when you start talking with God, as if I would talk to Nick like he's sitting here in a body, about my worries, about the death that's coming knocking on my door, about all the things that's telling my heart, it's lifted off of you. It's casting it onto God. See, we hear cast your care and we think of it more physically as something we got to do. Like put on your armor. We think of how we got to wake up in the morning and put on our armor and that's how it's going to happen. It's not talking about something you do. It's talking about a dynamic that happens. And so through having a fellowship with God as Father and Him seeing you the way He saw Jesus as Son, through that fellowship, what happens is the Spirit will cause you to go to God every time you encounter tribulation. And through that process, the tribulation is cleansed from your thoughts. You walk away innocent again, right? It's like when I fell off my little Hope bike, trying to learn how to ride a two-wheel. And I fell down. Man, it sucked and it hurt real bad. But then my dad was right there, and I ran into Daddy's arms. And the second Daddy had me in his arms, oh man, I didn't even remember falling down. And I felt great strength to try to go ride it again. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what the Spirit will bring forth in us. It's immersing us in the fellowship between the Father and the Son. The fellowship between the Father and the Son is based on the Spirit. And that Spirit's been poured out on all flesh. As we hear that Spirit, you guys are going to walk away, and even if you don't know it, your subconscious mind is going to be twisting on the Spirit.
It comes out of a relationship, because it's so easy to listen to stuff and say, I've got to work a principle now in order for this to this happen, but it's all about relationships. Someone asked me the other day, it's like, well, why, we see sin and death in this earth and that, why do we have that, and why can't just God create us and we don't have to go through this life? And the thing that came to my mind was that because God's so interested in relationship with you, that there's things in this world that we'll go through that we could never experience in eternity had we not gone through that. Does that make sense? There's things that we experience here and now. And I think about Jesus, that when He gave up all His deity as God and became a baby and became a child, and now He sits at the right hand of the Father, that He experienced something through what it meant to be a man. And that's why He can completely emphasize in every single way with us, because He was a man. And that wasn't in the Godhead before. There's some different dynamic within the Godhead itself than there was before that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And a lot of times that thought can be born of us just thinking about our own life. Because God has honored us as co-equals, which means He can't force His life on us.
Yeah.
So we may say, well, I have life, and so why do I got to go through this world? Really what we're saying is screw all these other people around me, and whether they have life or not, I don't care if they perish. Rather, just let me be able to enjoy my life now. Because in the day Jesus comes back, anybody who doesn't have the Spirit of God is not going to have life. Right? They're not going to enjoy life. They're going to perish. Okay? So people don't understand that dynamic about God. The Jews missed that dynamic about God. He couldn't just come and baptize the earth in glory. He couldn't just come in the fullness of the physical manifestation of His glory for everybody to see, because nobody had the Spirit then. And if He had done that, it would have been left with Him and only the earth and nothing else. Because all of the creatures were created from, we were created from them. They're attached to us. So when the day God just comes and does that, we're all going to die. And so what God had to do was He had to do something so we could behold Him and His Spirit. And there had to be a period of time where people could believe on that Spirit, and that Spirit could indwell them, so that all who want life will have it, so that in the day He comes and the fire of His love, it consumes everything. All those who wanted to have life will live. But if He didn't have this period of time for the gospel to be preached, then no one could have come home to their inheritance. If you don't come home to your inheritance, guess what you don't have? Your inheritance. That's why it's the Jubilee. People miss the part of the Jubilee in the spirit of prophecy. The Jubilee was announced, and what did it declare? Your debt has been cleared. Come home to your inheritance. Well, we were indebted to sin. Death was reigning over us, and we were all the time working, trying to cleanse ourselves from death. Well, Jesus said, it is finished. Do you know what the high priest said right before he declared the Jubilee year? It is finished. You know when he said it? On the Day of Atonement. And they would blow a trump. Do you know what Jesus said on the Day of Atonement when He hung on the cross? It is finished. What was He declaring? Your debt to sin is paid. I just died your death. Come home to your inheritance. Wow. Now there has to be a period of time for the gospel to be preached so people can be filled with the Spirit. Right. So that when God comes, they're baptized in His glory and their flesh isn't consumed and they don't perish. Right? That's how the thing... And see, this is one of the reasons why the Jews missed it. The Jews missed it because they thought the Messiah was just going to come and establish a physical kingdom immediately. But they didn't understand. If the Messiah comes and establishes a physical kingdom immediately, ain't nobody got the Spirit of the Son. And so, who's going to live? Nobody. And so, the Messiah had to come as a servant to serve His people with the bread of life. And all those who want the bread of life will eat from that bread. They'll find the Spirit of the Son dwelling in them. And then the Messiah is going to come a second time to establish the physical kingdom. But that will be after everybody who wants life has it. Nobody's going to accidentally miss out on life. Nobody's going to be like, oh, I would have taken life if I had known. That's not going to happen to anybody. Everybody's going to be confronted with the Christ at some point, reaching out His hand and saying, I don't want you to die. Yeah. I preserved your life in me. Take my hand. Right? Do you guys understand the dynamic there? Yeah. And so, if He had come back and just poof, we'd all be dead. Yeah. None of us would have eternal life. Right? And it's a normal thought. I don't despise anybody for thinking that. Listen, just last month, we know Becky's grandma passed, and things weren't going good for her family. I mean, honestly, I even want to cry thinking about it now because my soul was so sorrowful for them. But man, I actually was out loud talking to God. How long, Lord? How long is it going to be? You see, and even that thought is born from the sorrow I was feeling, right? Because immediately I thought, let it be as long as it takes for everybody that wants life to have it. Yeah. You see, like immediately you start shifting to everybody else, right? So it's a normal thought to feel like, man, why has this got to happen? But guess what? There's a very specific reason why it had to happen. And if God hadn't done it that way, none of us would have life. Right. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like we would have perished. So we're in the Jubilee now, which is the time where everybody comes home to their inheritance. Yeah. Right? That's why it says everyone's name is in the book of life. Your name isn't added to the book of life. Your name is in the book of life. And then it's blotted out if you don't want life. Right? And so what happened on the Jubilee is when they declared your debt paid, your inheritance then was land. And so you could leave and go back to the land they gave your tribe. Well, what would happen is they would open up the books and find your name in the book. and say, this is your inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is with the book of life. And that's the connection with the book of life. Our names are in the book of life.
Yeah.
And when we hear what God, the testimony God's given in His Son, we come home to our inheritance and we see our names written in the book of life.
Wow.
Right? But if we don't want life, God honors us as co-equals.
Yeah,
I love
sure.
what Bertie says. He bows His head to us as co-equals. He doesn't say, I want some guards in my kingdom. I want co-heirs with me in my kingdom. So He bows His head to them as a co-equal. He will be grieved in His heart and He'll shed His tears, but He's not going to force life on them.
And that is love, because although we're above angels, even angels were given freedom of choice and are given freedom of choice
Right.
because they fell.